Tom Clark's 6M podcast is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show. Hey, what is up? Welcome to Tom Clark's 6M podcast. I'm your host, Tom Clark, and in this episode, I'm joined by co-host Phil Lindsey. If you've been following the 6M podcast for any length of time, and when I say length of time, I'm talking about back to year 2, which was 2021, January 29th to be more specific. First of all, thanks much. We appreciate you. Second, you may be a bit confused because that episode was entitled simply Sting. And in that episode, myself and co-host Greg Ramsey talked about the legend, the icon, the man of the hour. That's right, the all-time Hall of Famer, Sting himself, Mr. Steve Borden. In that episode, we talked about his entry into the business, his work as the Blade Runners, along with the Ultimate Warrior, his stuff in WCW, his stuff in WWE, his stuff in TNA. Well, guess what we're doing today here, kids? We are talking about Sting in AEW. So before we kick things off here, I will tell you that as of this recording, Sting has officially hung up the boots and taken the paint off, at least for in-ring competition, for the last time, he says. And man, we've got a lot to talk about. Can't wait to get into it. A little bit of background before we get into this. We may not go very deep into the rabbit hole of his career prior to AEW, or we may. So if you're looking for a complete biography on Sting the wrestler from start to finish, this is not the show that maybe you are expecting. But if you just want some conversation about Sting and AEW, our thoughts, our feelings, then you have come to the right place. So let's get this kicked off, shall we? Steve Borden, born March 20th, 1959, day before my birthday actually. And no, not 59, be nice. Better known by the ring name Sting, is an American retired professional wrestler now. Borden is known for his time spent as the face of 2 American professional wrestling promotions, World Championship Wrestling from 1988 to 2001, and TNA from 2006 to 2014. Although the WWE purchased WCW in 2001, Borden did not sign with them at the time, and prior to WCW, he wrestled for the National Wrestling Alliance's Jim Crockett Promotions, which became WCW in 1988. Universal Wrestling Federation, and the Continental Wrestling Association, all combined. He last performed in All Elite Wrestling, as we said, from 2020 to 2024 before retiring. Borden wore face paint throughout his career, and in 1996 changed from the multicolored paint of his surfer persona to the monochromatic paint of the Crow gimmick. He also incorporated elements of the Joker in the latter part of his time in TNA. And there you have it, folks. There is the lowdown on the man called Sting. So, as we're kicking this off, man, first off, what did you think of the retirement match at Revolution? And in your opinion, what about his run overall in AEW?
Yeah, I think I didn't know what to expect when Sting first came in. But I think now it's going to go down as one of the best things AEW has ever done. Bringing him in and giving him a last run with the company. I think his retirement match was excellent. I thought the entrance and just the presentation, just the fact that they treated him like such a big deal and they gave him such a great celebration of his entire career, not just his AEW run. It was just really, really cool. From the montage they aired on the Countdown special was really, really cool. I thought his entrance with him sitting in the theater and watching all these parts of his career, not to see WCW parts that we would have liked to see because they're owned by another certain company.
Yes.
But it was still very nice to see. It was nice to see him drop down from the rafters one more time on Dynamite, and because they couldn't put the WCW stuff in the clips that they showed before his entrance, it was nice that we got to see him drop from the rafters in the AEW shot at least. So at least there was one rafter spot in there. I was surprisingly emotional because I wasn't a big Sting guy growing up. But seeing him come out there with his kids and they were dressed as him with the makeup and everything, and then they played Seek and Destroy. And when that crowd started singing Seek and Destroy, I was just sitting there like with like goosebumps. Like this is just incredible. And the match itself was really good as well. I thought the Young Bucks played their role perfectly. You could see why he wanted to have the match with them. They played perfect heels in this. Darby is completely and utterly out of his mind. That spot he did is going to be one of the most memorable spots for the match. I'm sure people will get into their pearl clutching on why he shouldn't do that, why that's dumb, and why it's scary. But what a cool visual! What a very
Such a
cool
cool visual.
visual. Um,
Such a cool visual.
but yeah, just that ending the night with him getting his confetti and ending his time with the company as champion, retiring with Darby undefeated as a tag team. Um, it was a really cool moment, man. It was just such a nice send off for him.
On a recent podcast, I made the comparison to if Jordan had went out with either a playoff win or a ring with the Wizards, that would be how I would compare this. Is there a good comparison for how Sting went out here? Maybe not to another sport, but can you think of another wrestler that got a send off like this before?
I would say the closest we got is Kobe's last game and him putting up the big points to his last game. He
Mm.
put up like 60 in that last game. Uh, and that was at the end of his retirement tour. He got to do that in LA. Got to have his confetti. Got to do his last speech as a Laker after putting up 61 last time. It's about the closest I can come up with.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, honestly, in terms of wrestling, uh, Adam Copeland, formerly known as Edge, his last official match in WWE before coming back, he retained the championship and retired with the title. I'm getting that right, aren't I? I
Yeah, that's right. Because
think.
he had
Yeah.
to vacate it when he retired.
Yeah. So, but I don't know if I've got anything else. And I'll be honest with you, man. When Sting went over in this match, I was a little surprised. I actually expected him to take the pin. Did that cross your mind going into this?
Well, I pointed this out when we talked about it on Grab City, and I was saying because I was saying all along I was pretty sure he was gonna win. At one point I thought maybe that the Bucks were gonna do the heel thing, beat him in Greensboro and get booed. Um, but when they attacked him after they won the titles on Dynamite, I was like, that's the moment. That's how you know they're gonna lose because they attacked him before he could celebrate the title win. And I thought that was a very important note because they did that to cut it off so he wouldn't get the confetti and get his moment with Darby so that when he did get it, it would feel like a bigger deal. When it did happen at the pay per view, it would feel like a bigger feel good moment.
It's a great point. It's a really great point, man. Um, well, look, like you, I really thoroughly enjoyed the retirement match. How cool was it to see his sons out there, dude? Wasn't that awesome?
Yeah, Wolfpack Sting was he had the hops out there, man. He was jumping out the gym.
Oh man, I don't know who owns the rights to that Wolfpack song. I don't know if WWE owns that or not, but like it would have been awesome to because you imagine, Phil, if Tony Khan could have got his hands on it, he definitely would have got his hands on it.
Yeah, I mean they pulled Seek and Destroy out of nowhere. I was not expecting that.
Yeah, that's what he came out to in Wembley. And then, folks, if you know Sting from WCW, when they turned him heel, I think Phil is when they gave him the Metallica song in WCW, I believe, and then he kept it for a while. I think is how that went. By the way, Phil, I don't know if you remember this or not, but heel Sting in the Crow gimmick in WCW is not good. From where I'm sitting, it just didn't work. Like, at least for me, it just felt forced. I'm like, how do you turn this guy heel? Look at him, like legend. You know, the black and white paint. I mean, Scott Hall has always taken, I don't want to say taken credit, but supposedly he's the guy that told Sting. And then if you hear Sting tell it, Phil, he claims it wasn't based on the Crow. I'm like, what? What are you kidding me?
How is that possible?
How's that possible? Right. But supposedly Scott Hall had brought it up to him and showed him a comic or showed him the movie and said, you should think about this. This guy looks awesome. And supposedly that's where it came from. So Sting tried something different. He's got to have one of the most visually striking looks I've ever seen in a professional wrestling ring. And very few people, I mean, talk about I know we're going to use the word icon a lot here, Phil, but like, I don't know of anybody. I mean, Hogan in the red and yellow, maybe, and Austin in the black and the vest, but like iconic. A Taker with the hat and the duster. Like, dude, that crow look completely revitalized his career, didn't it?
Yes. I mean, I would imagine that most modern fans, they know him as the Crow Sting. They don't know Surfer Sting. Like, I'm sure they'll know it from like the montages and like pictures and clips and stuff. But most of those people probably didn't watch him wrestle as Surfer Sting.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, I remember when they brought him in, and dude, talk about a ball of energy, Phil. The guy was a complete ball of energy in the NWA. I mean, it was crazy. And at that point, they were transitioning to WCW at that point. But like, holy Lord, brought a life, brought a spark. And I mean, he still has that spark, Phil. I mean, people chanting, "You still got it." Could you have imagined, Phil? Be honest. I know you said you didn't know what to expect. Think about all the big moments that he's had, diving off of stuff and falling through tables, and oh my God, I could never have predicted it would be to the extent that we got. Man, great stuff.
Yeah, I did not expect him to go all out in that match like that.
Man, so much good stuff we got from him. And remember, Phil, when they brought him in, a lot of people were saying, "Well, they're going to do the cinematic matches with him. He's far too old to get in there and do stuff." And Sting's like, hold my paintbrush. I'll show you. So, yeah, he freaking showed him, man. It's mind blowing to me what all this guy did. Talk to me for a bit about Darby. In your opinion, why do you think this was such a good pairing, apart from the obvious aesthetic similarities?
I think they have aesthetic similarities, but I also think that for as brooding as he looks in like the leather jacket and like the makeup and the dark hair, um, Sting is like very like extroverted. He's not as moody as Darby is, and so I think they play off each other well. I think the fact that they're both kind of like anti-establishment characters also works. It's like they have a lot of similarities, but they also have a lot of things that they don't have in common. Um, and I think for the things that they didn't have in common, um, I don't know, they just seem to complement each other well.
Yeah, and I mean the fact that Sting or that Darby's still upright is shocking in and of itself. So he's climbing Mount Everest in a couple of weeks. We'll see how that goes, right? But whew, man. I mean, did he make Sting young again? Do you think that helped him having a partner that could fly around the ring 100 miles an hour? Do you think it would have mattered if he hadn't been with a guy that young? Well, I mean, what's your take on that?
Uh, I think it helped the presentation because you got one guy that, of course, is limited, and so and I mean say I say limited with no shade, of course, because he did look good when he was in there,
Mm.
but he of course has his limitations because of his age, uh, but at the same time you've got some guy like Darby that's just flying out of the ring, like he's getting shot out of a cannon, he's jumping off things, doing all this crazy reckless stuff. And Sting is just like slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah. Oh my God, so good, so good. Like, I like Darby quite a bit. Out of the ring stuff, he's another guy. We don't have to get into that mess, but in the ring, he is. He is Jeff Hardy if Jeff didn't care about his physical well being, which Jeff really doesn't most of the time. But it's like amplified with Darby, man. It's freaking nuts the stuff that Darby Allin does. I mean, can you envision? And look, we don't know a lot of this, Phil. First of all, let me back up a sec. I can't wait for Sting to write a book, and I hope it's happening because, brother, I will buy it the day it's released. But can you envision moments backstage where maybe he is as respectfully as he can telling Darby, "Look, man, slow down. You want to be doing this 10 years from now." Do you think they have that kind of relationship? Because I've never really heard the specifics of what kind of relationship these two guys have with each other.
I'm not sure because I don't think that Stink would come in and try and change him too much. I think he would want Darby to be Darby, and I
Mm,
think that's worked so much not just throughout his run with AEW, but throughout their run as a tag team. So I can't see him just going, man, you don't. What are you doing? Don't jump off this tall structure. Don't fling yourself down a flight of stairs.
yeah, God. He calls Darby the best partner he ever had, which is pretty cool. Because I would say up until Darby, he would have said Lex was the best partner he ever had. Ever had. Him and Lex have always been tight. Um, then of course him and Ultimate Warrior back when they were the Blade Runners, long time ago, kids. If you're taking notes, that's a long time ago. But I mean, I would have to agree with them, Phil. I think this the pairing of them together, iconic. If nothing else, Phil, the two of these guys together. I mean, Darby went from being the crazy daredevil to being the crazy daredevil with an icon slash mentor slash legend by his side who is putting him over every chance he gets. I mean, in your opinion, does this mean that Darby, maybe not right now, but does this set him up down the road to do something big, as in world title big? How far do you think they could take this?
I think that he is the closest to being ready to be a world title holder out of four pillars. The guys that are kind of like the complete package is, of course, Max, because Max has been champion already. But I think the second best pillar is Darby. And I think there's like kind of a wide gap between those two guys and Sammy and Jungle Boy.
Mm,
I think Darby's a lot closer than we think, and I think there's he had a really good run as TNT champion where he was legitimately main eventing. He was legitimately drawing a good number as champion. Um, and his promos have gotten a lot better. You've just seen him improve. When he's not going 1,000 miles per hour and doing like the big crazy stunts, the guy is actually pretty good in ring as well. He's actually underrated in ring, I would say.
mm.
Uh, so I do think there's a world where he can be world champion. We've got so many. There's such a good story you can tell with him from being a day one guy. His ties with Cody, um, and so many. There's so many things you can do with it. I think where you can eventually make him world champion. And it doesn't have to be like this, like year long run or something. Maybe give him a short run. But I think there's a lot you can do with that. And I think the idea of him winning that belt and Sting showing up to celebrate him, it's not going to be a dry eye in the building.
Oh yeah. Um, so AEW does not have a Hall of Fame yet, but when they do, and Phil, I'll throw out a prediction for you. I'm gonna predict next year, and maybe I'm too early. Isn't Sting the first guy they put in?
Yeah, I'd have to assume so.
Hmm. Was he TNA's first guy that they put in, or am I crazy?
I don't remember.
Man, I don't recall that. I want to say it was Sting, but I could be wrong. Hmm. I mean, it only makes sense because I would assume Sting and Brody Lee and gosh, I don't know. I mean, that's another conversation for another time. But
Their first class, yeah, I would say Sting, Brody Lee,
mhm.
uh, their first
That'd be
class.
tough, right? Because if you put in too many active wrestlers, it's kind of like, why are you doing this? Do you know what I mean? Because honestly, Phil, within a matter of years, they would have a Hall of Fame half full of active wrestlers, I assume, if unless they play it differently.
Yeah. Maybe Jericho.
Yeah, that makes sense.
His first champion, and a big part of the reason that they got the television deal and a lot of things in the first year was because of Jericho. He's really their first big major mainstream star.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, Jericho makes sense.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. So when it comes to staying in his run in AEW, I couldn't agree more. The guy surprised me. I did not expect him to do poorly. I just didn't know to what extent he would be able to do anything. But dude, I got to tell you, all these young guys getting hurt around him. Do you recall him going on the like injured list for anything? Because I'm trying to remember. I don't recall that happening. Am I missing something?
I didn't see it either, and if he was injured, it was probably a very well guarded secret. Um, yeah, yeah, I didn't expect him to come in and make such a big impact. I didn't expect in uh for the first 5 years of the company for him to be there so often. Um, I didn't expect like once he was gone to feel his absence, and it's not it hasn't been that long.
Mm,
Revolution was 2 weeks ago, not really even barely 2 weeks ago, uh, and it's very apparent that he's not there no more. It's
yeah.
did not expect to feel that way.
What's your take on? Oh, Steve Borden, the man, is smart. Yes, he's a legend. He surely knows how to put matches together. Yes, he would be a great influence. They should bring him in backstage or in an on-screen role. Because I got opinions on this, but I'd love to hear what you think.
I don't think he should do it on screen, bro. I think that if he's gonna retire, I think it should stick and it should matter. I mean, not saying that it cheapens him, not no longer competing as a wrestler anymore. But I think if you put him on screen, it just doesn't really. I don't know. It just doesn't really quite hit the same as Sting the wrestler. And I'm sure people get a kick out of seeing him regularly on TV, but I can't say that it's something I really need. Um,
Mm.
I think the idea of him working backstage and being a producer or consulting in some way, helping with certain guys, that makes more sense for him and what his sensibilities are. Uh, I would always say, what is it that he wants to do? If that's something he really has had aspirations to do, then by all means, he should be doing it.
Yeah, you have echoed exactly my thoughts. I don't. I love him. Do I want to see him on TV? Of course I do. Do I need to now that we've had this amazing send off? No, I don't. And if we could talk to him right now, he'd probably say, "Yeah, I don't want to." Phil, veterans especially, wrestlers in general, but veterans especially, are really, really concerned with. I want to do this the right way, and I don't want to step on anything. In any good work that was done, I don't want to step on it. So, like, that would be my answer to that. Is that if you could ask him directly, he'd say, "Yeah, I don't want to step on that." It was such a high, such an emotional high that I don't want to do anything to mess that up. Hey, kids, Tom Clark here, and did you know the very podcast you're listening to right now is available on boinkstudios.com. BOINK, Boink Studios is the home of Tom Clark's Main Event, Tom Clark's 6M podcast, and Two Nations Under Ted, a Ted Lasso podcast. Visit the site today for links to every podcast platform, social media, special announcements, and a lot more. Check out the site and bookmark today, boinkstudios.com. I have heard some fans out there throw out the opinion that Darby should have turned on him at Revolution. Have you heard that? And have you engaged with anyone that actually believed that?
I've seen people say it, but I think that's because a certain company has very much conditioned fans to believe that most things should be a swerve and most things should be done for heat. Um, I had no real interest in seeing Darby turn on him. I think he could have gotten an interesting story out of that, and he could have gotten a moment out of it of him getting booed, but I didn't really need to see it. Not something I was really interested in.
I didn't need to see it, honestly. And where, by the way, Phil, where do you even go after that?
That's the problem. You get the moment, and you turn him heel. You get the heat on him in Greensboro, but then what? What do you do with him as a character moving forward?
Yeah, I'm with that. And look, kids, everyone's entitled to their opinion. It's perfectly fine. No worries at all. But when I heard that specific opinion being thrown around, I'm like, I cannot believe. But then, like you, my head immediately went to all the other guys have just ruined it. Have ruined this for everybody. Because if this had been his last night in the other company, Phil, they would have set him on fire. his mom in the front row would have been pie faced. It would have been his kids would have been cut open. I don't know. I'm just exaggerating, but that's the kind of crap we expect from the other guys, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean they take every opportunity to throw a swerve in there or to uh, stick it to the fan. So it's okay to just go out on a good note, man. You don't have to always turn it into an opportunity for heat. I know that's a big bully Ray thing as well, but we don't need to do that with every opportunity.
No, exactly right. We don't need to do it at every turn. For God's sake, this guy put his time in. Let him have the proper send off. I was so happy for him. The fact that he got this, it's very cool, man. Again, very, very glad for the guy that he got this to begin with. Um, if all right, so related but kind of not related. What other veterans who are active right now? I mean, we mentioned Jericho. I assume Jericho will get this kind of send off if he were to, let's say, if he were to retire from the company. I still think Jericho will go back to WWE again. I really believe that.
Yeah, I think he'll eventually go back. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. In fact, I still think Danielson will. I do. I think they'll bring him in for one last run. If 2024 is truly the end, I wouldn't be surprised to see him gone in the fall, if not earlier. I just, it's how I feel. Maybe I'll be wrong. But what other veterans do they have, Phil? Can you imagine? You think Copeland will get this kind of send off? Or, I mean, what's the chances any of these guys go back to WWE and retire from there? It's like going back to a certain team and retiring from that team. Like I signed a 1-day contract with the Lakers and retired from there. Who else do they have that they could get this kind of send off, you think?
I think Brian. I actually don't think Brian's gonna go back.
Hmm.
I think he's done after this run. I can't see him continuing to wrestle on a full time schedule, especially. Um, I think Brian, especially with his ties to Ring of Honor and
Hmm.
what he means to Ring of Honor. I mean, his post WWE career has just been incredible. Like when you think it's just the New Japan stuff, the matches he's managed to have in AEW in a short time period. Um, yeah, I think Brian's the guy is going to get a really really big send off. Um, other legends that are there.
Man, it's tough. I would say Copeland. It kind of feels like Copeland's done with WWE. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. It kind of feels like he left on good terms, and I guess, and like he's okay. And I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that one. I don't know.
I gotta think Copeland's done as well. Copeland just doesn't have the same importance to the company and Ring of Honor. Because that's kind of different for me. Sting is the most popular uh, wrestler to not really have a big run with WWE, and he had his time there. But for most people, he's known as like one of the biggest non WWE wrestlers there is.
Hmm.
And I think for Brian, it's kind of the same way. Like, of course, Brian had his run with WWE, but um, his run with Ring of Honor is kind of its own thing. And I think his AEW run is starting to get to that point as well.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. Um, it's crazy to think about how long Sting's been around, dude. I mean, if you really think about how long this guy's been an active pro wrestler. And I mean, yeah, there was the span of time where he wasn't doing anything. I totally get that. But he had that big run in TNA, which, I got some thoughts on that run. The Joker Sting was different for me. I don't know if I don't know. I can't say I hated it, but I wasn't crazy about all of it. I mean, Phil, he debuted in 1985. We got to think about that, dude. A long time. I mean, in terms of his TNA stuff, the Joker Sting, was that too much for you? Do you think it was just right? I mean, I don't know. What's your opinion on that?
It wasn't really for me. I didn't watch a lot of TNA growing up. Every time I think of TNA, I think of Ron Killings doing that terrible joke. And I'm saying TNA. Um, uh, with yeah, no, I didn't watch a lot of TNA, so it wasn't really for me. But I know a lot of people that were really into it. So I don't know. I don't have anything really negative to say about it. I was kind of indifferent to it, I guess.
Yeah, I guess I was too. But part of it felt like, you know what it was? Part of it for me felt like, I don't think you need to do this. Like, I don't know, dude. It didn't feel like to me, oh, well, it's time to reinvent. I don't know, man. I don't know if I got that. He brought some of that into AEW, Phil, but I'm glad to see they didn't go full bore with it like they maybe could have.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, when he brought it in with AEW, it seemed like he was having fun doing it, and
Yeah,
all the stuff that I've seen from that era, it looked like he was fully committed to it and he was enjoying that role. So maybe for him, it was just a chance to do something different.
that's fair. Yeah, I'm okay. If that's the case, I'm okay with that. But yeah, I'm actually watching his retirement match back now. They get that what is it, EVP trigger, and he kicked out at 1. Are you effing kidding me right now?
Yeah,
So good.
yeah, I loved just him jumping up and he starts beating on his chest. Every time I've watched the Darby spot as well, and just seeing Darby beating on his chest before he does it, I think something cool
Yeah.
about that too. It's just small touches like that that made the match great.
Yeah. I mean, it's early contender for match of the year, dude. I mean, there'll be other amazing matches this year, Phil, and there's been amazing matches before this one, but my goodness. I mean, I made the Jordan comparison when we started, but it kind of feels like Jordan in Utah hitting that 3-point shot, doesn't it? That's what it kind of feels like to me, man.
Yeah, I mean, any chance to dunk on Utah fans because they deserve it.
Throwing shade here on the 6M against the great Utah faithful.
Nah,
So,
man, yeah, I really thought that sending that dodgy pizza to his room was gonna get him up out of here. Nope, still a goat.
that's a very good point, buddy. Yeah. I mean, to go out on your feet, to go out with your arm raised, to go out like a man, be treated with respect. Your last tour, your last run, everyone sang your praises. He got a curtain call like every time he was in a town for the last night. He got a curtain call, I believe. So like I don't know what more they could have done. Phil, we hear a lot about, you know, Tony the Wild Man, Tony who can't book, Money Mark, Daddy's Money, Tony's hitting cocaine, he's crazy, he's out of control. I mean, is this guy ever going to get real, I mean, honest to God praise for how he does some things? Because, like, dude, if this doesn't show people what he's capable of, I don't know what will in terms of how he handled Sting in his retirement.
I think there's a sincerity to the way he does things like this. I felt the same way about Brody's farewell show. I
Yeah.
thought that they handled it in a very classy way. Um, yeah, of course, I don't agree with everything the guy does. We're never going to agree with everything these people do, but I think that he had more hits with Sting in general than he had misses. I think you can tell how much he respected Sting's contributions to wrestling, how much he loved his career. Um, so I thought it was great. I thought that it was it. I'm telling you, I continue to think that it's one of the best things that the company has done to date. Um, just how they treated him throughout his entire run, um, and how they treated the farewell and the retirement match. I think that's going to go down as like really the kind of crown jewel of the first 5 years of the company.
Yeah. I can't disagree with that at all. Would it have been cool to see him? Because I know a few years ago, they had the tag match where Shingo, by the way, Phil, who looked like he was having the best night of his life, tagging with Sting. Uh, would it have been cool to see Sting in Japan during all this?
Yeah, I mean, we got a little bit of it because he did the Noah matches.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would have been cool to maybe see him do maybe something else with Muda, but even Muda showing up, was that Forbidden Door where he showed up?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would have been cool to do maybe something else with Muda. But other than that, I can't think of anything like crazy I want to see him do.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about Ric Flair. So Rick comes out late 2023, basically telling the world he wanted to be a part of Sting's last run. At any given point, he was attached, he wasn't attached. Phil, the fans turned on him online. and said he has no business being there because of, I grew up a fan of this guy. Actually, I grew up hating him, Phil, because he's big time heel. But later in life, a lot of respect for the guy, one of the best wrestlers of all time. But a lot of the stuff he did during his prime has not aged well. You know, the stuff with women, the stuff on the plane, and, basically just acting a fool and much worse than that, of course. So, Phil, now that we're in this information age that we're in 2024, everyone knows all this stuff. They flat out turned on him and didn't want him around, at least online. What was your immediate takeaway when they sort of inserted him here and did all the work with his was it energy drink, I guess? What was your thoughts when all this started happening?
When I was thinking of the guys that have had like a part in his career that you could have brought in, Sting didn't. It wasn't the top of my list. I actually thought for a second that Tony was gonna pull the Goldberg card because he had been talking about bringing Goldberg in,
Hmm.
and I kind of had a feeling at one point he's gonna do the Goldberg card. Maybe I can't say that I think that was gonna be a match, but maybe he would have brought him in for an appearance or something. But uh, can't say that I was really enthused to see Ric Flair, to be
Mm,
honest,
yeah.
um, because I don't want to see him wrestle. I, just,
No,
I
no.
do not want to see him wrestle. And he doesn't have that much to add to this as an on-screen character either. So it didn't really. I didn't really need to see him. Have you seen the Conrad episode where Conrad was talking about what Rick was trying to pitch?
I have not. I'm afraid to ask.
Rick wanted to turn on Sting in the match uh, one last time and get the heat on it, and I was just like, "Yeah, we didn't need that. I'm good.
No, we didn't need
We
that.
did not need to see that. Sorry, Rick, but we did not need to see that."
Have you noticed he kind of disappeared during the celebration? He was at ringside for a while, then he just kind of wandered off.
Yes, I did.
Mm.
Yeah, his addition to the match just felt very unnecessary, to be honest with you. Like, I don't think it really added anything.
I was kind of surprised Lex wasn't there either, to be honest with you.
He was in the crowd. He wasn't in the match.
Was he in the crowd? I did remember seeing Magnum and Nikita, but I didn't remember seeing Lex. Was he sitting with them?
He was in the crowd, but because he's still on a legend contract, I believe he couldn't be shown on camera, but he
I
could be
see.
there. So I, I, I think if you didn't see him on camera, that's probably why. But yeah,
Mm,
he was back. He was there. He took a picture backstage with Sting. So he was in the
nice.
crowd.
Very cool. I mean, if we're talking about people from Sting's past, Phil, we could have seen Black Scorpion. I'm just saying. Like, just saying, finally get the big reveal all these years later who the Black Scorpion really was. Because it wasn't Flair, we'll never know now. So, yeah, terrible. And kids, if you don't know that reference, you don't need to know it. It's freaking terrible. Um, really horrible storyline to say the least. Like I said, it was great to see his kids there. We got Flair there, for better or worse. Time back, David Crockett was there that night. Always good to see David. It was a real homecoming for him, which again, Phil, being able to call your own shots and go out like you want, freaking nuts. Is this, and I hate to do this, but this, Phil, comparisons between this guy and Taker have happened for years. So let me switch it up a little bit. Isn't this what we should have had with Taker in the other company, and we never really got it?
Yeah, I would have liked a little bit of a better send off for Taker. And I know he got to go out on his note. I know he got the cinematic match on the way out. I do
Hmm.
think retiring when he did, like, with the pandemic and everything, I think that kind of harmed it. I think it probably would have been better. I think WWE would have probably planned it better if they did not have everything going on in the world as well. Um, Kurt Angle just sticks out as the one where they just really botched his retirement to me. I think he deserved a much better send off than what he got.
Mhm. Yeah, that's fair. Remember Taker taking off the duster, the hat, the boots, in the middle of the ring after losing to Roman, and then we're like, "Oh wow, that's it," and then he came right back. I'm
Yeah.
like, "Why?"
Yeah. Yeah, it was such a good moment to end on
Yeah,
WrestleMania as well. And I thought that was it. I thought, you can come back and do like the video montages and stuff and, prepare for his Hall of Fame induction. But nope, he ended up wrestling again. So that
yeah,
was,
a few times.
yeah, I was pretty surprised by that.
Took some of
And
that fun Saudi Arabia money there, Phil.
and it wasn't even really referenced again. They never really talked about why he did that.
Yeah.
He
No,
just
they
started
never
wrestling
mentioned.
again. It's
Yeah. I was just kidding. I didn't really leave. I was just playing with y'all. Yeah.
I don't really want to go home.
Yeah. I try to leave. They just keep throwing money at me. Keep backing the truck up to the door of the dead man. So I keep going back. That's fine. Yeah. Yeah. Crazy. Crazy. Is there anyone today? Boy, here's something you may not be able to answer. Because all right, let's make this statement and see if you agree. Is he meaning Sting, is he the last of the icons at this time? I mean, who else is left that is number one, the link between now and I mean pre-attitude era, Phil, pre-attitude era to now? I mean, there's I guess Jericho. Is that it? Jeff Jarrett, maybe? Jarrett for sure. Who else?
You said from his era?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jarrett. I think Jarrett. Hey,
I
Rick.
can't think.
Rick has had
Rick.
so many
Yeah.
retirements at this point. Just
Yeah.
uh,
I mean, brother, I think that's it. I can't think of anybody else that's even in any kind of shape that they could still work. I mean, the Steiners maybe, and they're both done. Like, man, it's tough. That's tough. Like,
yeah, it is tough.
yeah, it's the end of an era, man. It truly is the end of an era with Sting hanging it up. Crazy. Farewell to an icon is what they called it for this match. So, yeah, a lot of stuff going on with that too, man. Like the idea of we don't know what to expect. Is someone going to turn? Is something funky going to happen? I can actually envision a scenario in which Sting volunteered to drop the pin because he's a veteran. You always leave the territory better than you found it. That's always the mantra of veterans, man. Should be the mantra of every wrestler, period. But like, I firmly believe that he was probably going to lose this match, and then it turns out he went over in the end, which was awesome, making the Bucks tap out. But yeah, there again, man, it's crazy to me how everything ended up. Tom Clark 6M Podcast is sponsored in part by Radius Law Group. Every day, Radius helps individuals, families, small businesses, and nonprofit organizations throughout North Carolina, Florida, and Pennsylvania resolve their legal issues by providing effective legal counsel in the areas of estate planning, as well as elder law and Medicaid. Radius Law holds the radical belief that working with a lawyer can indeed be enjoyable. So give them a call at 1-800-519-5667 for more information and tell them that Tom Clark 6M Podcast sent you. Going back to WWE for a second, in terms of what could have been, you can't even compare the run he had in that company to this one. Dude, it's not even on the same planet, is it? Like, not at all.
No, I mean the WWE run isn't really a run. He he had the WrestleMania match that was pretty unpopular. Then he came back and had the Seth match, and that was kind of it. He had some stuff in between there, but nothing really to write home about.
He won a TV match, I think, with maybe he was tagging with Orton or something. He won one time, I think. But that was it. I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there wasn't much to it. That's why I'm saying it. Not much of a run. It's
More of a walk.
not much of a run. It's not. It's the WrestleMania match, and that was kind of the big moment of it. That was the peak of it, the start.
Did you see all that coming, the way all that turned out, or were you kind of like, let's just wait and see what happens?
I was very much not excited at the idea of him wrestling Triple H because, like most of the WCW guys that came over, I knew WWE was not going to let him look good or let him have the win.
Mm.
I kind of felt like he was destined to lose to Triple H.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, I think you're right.
second they started that feud, I was just looking like, yeah, he's gonna lose because all the WCW guys they came straight in and lost.
You know, I've said for years the fact that they didn't put him against Taker and they were both in the locker room on the same night at the same WrestleMania when Sting faced Hunter and Taker faced Bray Wyatt. And there was a picture of them been floating around for years posing in the locker room together. I'm like, you had both these guys in your locker room and like you supposedly love making money. What were you thinking? Like, looking back on it, Phil, should we have actually gotten that match that night, or do you think it's better that we never did?
I think that was the closest we were ever gonna get to getting it, and I think that they probably should have made it happen. But then when you think about it now, Bray's not here, and we got the Bray Taker match instead. And that was
Hmm.
we weren't gonna get that Taker match again after that. So yeah, uh, it's wild too that they had the cinematic match in mind at one point and they never went back to it. Uh, I don't know what it is. Do we have confirmation that Undertaker didn't want the match?
I don't have confirmation on that.
It seems like it was more to it than just the WWE because I would have to imagine if they could have put that match on, they would have tried.
You would think that they were just hell bent on putting him against Hunter. And the only thing that, oh, you know this, Phil, the only thing that match was about was making WCW look bad. That's all it was about.
Yeah, our legends are better. We won the Wednesday Night War. Never
Yeah.
forget we won.
Yeah. Monday Night War and Wednesday night,
Sorry,
both.
Monday Night War.
You're not far off because they had Thunder. Thunder was on Wednesdays and then SmackDown was flip flopping between Thursday and Friday forever. So, yeah, crazy, man. Crazy. The what ifs of this business. I kind of like it, would have been fun to watch. And I still am one of those guys to this day who laments the fact it never happened. But it's kind of cool that that's the white whale that never happened. Like it just wasn't meant to be. Dude, at some point, if you're staying in Taker, aren't you like, it's fine. Like we don't, it's fine. Like why worry about it? You know what I mean? Like if, is this one of those things where the fans cared more about it than maybe they did possibly?
I think Sting really wanted to match at one point, but I think he's been in the business long enough where he just looked around like, oh, probably not gonna happen.
Yeah.
It happens. I have to. It's probably the fans more than anything. Dude, the fans don't know how to let things go.
That's fair.
That's always been a thing.
What do we know about his sons? Do you know anything about them? Are they, I mean, it looks like they're athletic guys at the least. I mean, do we know if they're interested in doing this or do we have any idea?
I don't. I know that one of them is a streamer, and I know that he. I believe he played football. Or he's definitely an athlete. Um, but I don't know that either of them are interested in wrestling.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, God, it's big shoes to fill, man.
Yeah, it is. I saw people saying that it'd be kind of nice if he handed the mantle of Sting down to one of them and they continue to go. And that could be interesting, but of course, you're now adding the pressure to their career.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, if that's something they wanted to do, then they should. But other than that, I don't know. It's an awful lot of pressure to put on them.
Awful lot of pressure. And my response to that, Phil, will always be if something like this ever happens, whether it's him or any other wrestler that passes a name to their son, that should be a family decision and not a booker or a company owner because
I agree.
you know what I mean? Like let's be real about this and added pressure is added pressure. But if it's a conversation between a father and son, that's different than a conversation between a son and a booker. So
Yeah, I
for
agree.
sure.
It should be a family decision. I don't think that should be a business decision. Like, oh, well, we need a Sting on TV. Sting's a big money maker. He's a big draw, so we need a Sting on TV. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's just give him the mantle. That sounds kind of icky.
Yeah. Yeah, really. Yeah. It's not like he's not Batman, Phil. We just keep recasting Batman.
Yeah,
So,
no thanks.
yeah. And speaking of Batman slash the Crow slash comic book stuff, I mean, God, he pulled it off so well. He got to come down from the rafters one last time, which is very cool. He hasn't done that. He hasn't done that since Owen Hart passed away, has he? I don't think he has.
Uh, yeah, I know that they slowed down on doing it after Owen passed. I think they still did it a few more times afterwards, but
Hmm.
I don't think that they did it much longer after that.
Yeah, it's good to see he had one more time. I got to tell you, man, if I can flash back real quick, like some of the most exciting parts of those days during Monday Night Wars was, we're flipping the TV back and forth between Raw and Nitro, and it's just, you can just about be guaranteed in the last 5 minutes of Nitro, you're going to see Sting come down from the rafters and mess some people up. Such a cool thing. And then they blew it. They put him over on Hogan, and then dropped the belt right back to him, and had the ending be all weird, and it wasn't a straight count. It was messed up, and it's like, what are we doing here? Like, leave it to Bischoff and those guys to ruin that moment, man. So, yeah, but thankfully that did not happen here, which is a very good thing. So, in the grand scheme of things, Phil, when it comes to this guy, his career, and we've all got our favorites, we've all got opinions on who the best of all time is. In your mind, where does Sting rank in greatest of all time? If it's you talking, what do you think?
Uh, where does he rank?
Yeah.
I'd say he's among the top 10, top 5.
I mean, I
Just
don't know
based
how. Yeah.
just based on how long he had wrestled, the impact he had on 3 different companies.
Mhm.
I would say he has to be in the top 10 or top 5.
Yeah. 3 companies. That's a good point. 3 companies this guy basically carried. I mean, well, I could say maybe he didn't carry AEW, but he certainly held up his end of the deal, man.
Yeah, I would say that he definitely was a instrumental part of the company while he was there.
Yeah, I agree with that. In what capacity do you think we ever see him again on TV? And if you have an answer, we're talking down the road, aren't we?
Yeah, I think it's down the road. I don't think we're going to see him anytime soon.
Mm.
I'm telling you that the fantasy booker in me thinks the time that you do see him is that Darby wins and Sting comes out and congratulates him.
Oh, nice. Like wins the world title?
Yeah, he finally wins the world title. Darby's in the ring, and then Sting's music hits. He comes out, puts him on his shoulders, and lifts him up.
Mm. I like that a lot, actually. Yeah, I like that a lot. Hadn't thought about that. That makes a lot of sense. Hopefully, Darby won't be bleeding to death when he wins the title.
Yeah, when
So,
when he turned over after that ladder spot, I was like,
oof.
Jesus Christ, dude! Holy cow!
No kidding, man.
That looked gruesome.
Yeah, it did. Terrible. But don't forget, Phil, all this is fake. It ain't real. So there you go. Uh, yeah. Don't forget that. That's what the critics say, they're never wrong. So hey. So yeah. Well, kids, I don't know what more we can say about the guy. We could probably share memories of old matches and talk about maybe what could have been with matches that didn't happen or this, that, and the other. But again, we focused as much as we could on the AEW run here, and talked about what it was like seeing him. The whole winter is coming was fantastic. The snow coming down for whatever reason, Phil, that absolutely fit him. And I don't know if I could have even written something like that to make it make sense, but like it fits. And by the way, was this the best Sting music of all time of all 3 companies, in your opinion?
Yeah, I'd say it's up there. But yeah, the presentation and everything of him coming out with the snow, uh, his uh his entrance video with like the crow and the snow and everything.
Mm.
Really cool.
Yeah, it looked great. I love the logo they made for him too. I think it's pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Really nice. It's probably the best logo he's ever had for sure. Well, kids, there you have it. There is Sting and AEW. And we'd tell you to stay tuned for more, but chances are that's the last you're going to get of the Icon, at least in a pro wrestling capacity. Like Phil, I do believe we'll see him again. I do not believe it will be right now. But, kudos to a great career. Congratulations to the Stinger. And well done. I don't know what more we could say about it. So, Phil, let's try to take this home. Give me your last word on Sting and AEW.
Iconic run. I thought he went out on the best note possible. I think AEW did a great job of not just giving him a last hurrah, but celebrating his career in totality. Icon. There's never going to be another Sting, man. I think those people that were in the building that got to see his last match are never going to forget that moment.
Oh, 100%. Well said, too. There's never going to be another one. We talked about his kids, but no, there's never truly going to be another Sting. Absolute professional. One of the few guys, Phil, that there's really no one has anything negative to say about because there's nothing negative to say. Yeah. But try being that guy for the entirety of your career that you never really make an enemy. Like in that business, are you kidding? Man, crazy.
Good point.
Crazy stuff. Well, again, folks, kudos to Sting, and he'll be missed. The cool thing is you've got a few years of a great run to check out. And just stay in touch with the memories, man. Like, if you loved his WCW stuff, go look that stuff up. If for whatever reason you enjoyed the WWE stuff, and look, there was moments, not matches, but moments that were kind of cool. You can look that stuff up as well. And congratulations to the Icon, man. We'll see what happens next in that company. And if and when we see Sting on the air again, into what capacity, who knows? We'll all find out together. But until then, that is Sting in AEW. Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Check out our social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 6M Podcast. We'll see you next time.